Hi, and welcome to Believe It or Not, an Interfaith Grand River program. I'm your host, August Edelman, and I'm here today with Donald Roberts, who is a Christian Scientist. So lovely to have you on the show. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. Who are you when you're not in this room?
Lovely question. Yeah. I'm a retired high school teacher. I spent 3 years at Cameron Heights and 30 years at Forest Heights here in Kitchener. I have a lovely wife at home, Janet. I have 2 adult sons and 1 daughter-in-law. And I have 2 dogs, old chocolate lab female and a young Highland West Heights dog, Westy, who's about 6 years old. So is that
That's great. That's
identifies?
lovely. I think
Yeah.
everyone at home is probably like, why didn't you bring the dogs?
Yeah. Anyway.
So,
And I'm born and raised in the Kitchener area. I've traveled a lot. I'm not nailed to this area, but I have found that this area just has provided everything that I look for and need, and so I'm quite happy to be part of this.
lovely. So I know basically nothing about what it means to be part of Christian Science. You told me its full name earlier, the First Church of Jesus Christ, Scientists.
There's not a Jesus.
No Jesus, sorry, I apologize.
Yeah, no,
Yep.
that's fine. First Church of Christ,
Science.
Scientist.
Okay.
And the scientist is the word that really challenges a lot of people here as well. But it's a religion very much in the Christian tradition, but primitive Christianity in the best sense of the word. The founder or discoverer of Christian Science, Mary Baker Eddy, was an American woman in post-Civil War United States who had been raised in a spiritually religious family background, but had tremendous problems throughout her life. But she had this sense that there was some spiritual strength that was supporting her and protecting her as well. And then she had a bad fall. I believe she was in her 70s at this point, late 60s. Anyway, and it was right after the Civil War in the United States in the 1870s. So you know the state of medical practice. If you watched any Civil War stuff,
Yeah.
pretty much amputate. But anyway, she had a bad fall, and the doctors attending her said, "Well, no, you're injured terminally. Like we can't do anything for you. Get your affairs in order." She asked for her Bible, and 3 days later she walked out of the room. She had been healed of this last accident that she had, and essentially by focusing on the New Testament, reading about the healings that Jesus was doing. And she was so obviously grateful for that healing and so impressed by it. She spent the next 3 years in deep study trying to find out what it was that she had touched to get this healing. And at that point then she began to lecture to people about what she had discovered about Christian healing. And of course, compared to what was being offered in the medical community, there was a very popular response. And within the next 20-some years, Christian Science healing was very, very popular in the United States. It actually exploded, to be a better word than just simply grew largely. But there were people then that were listening and reading to what she had written and going out and repeating the healing practice. I have since, in some of my research, found that in the early Christian church, healing was part of the practice. Jesus and recorded as doing healings all the time. And the interesting thing, if you look carefully at the record of the healings, he's almost always saying to the disciples, the apostles, people with him, "You do it. I'm showing you how." I'm not a magician. But I understand how God heals, and God is present, and God is omnipotent, and you do it. Like there was the sense of the teacher coming out. So that's why Mary Baker Eddy sort of said, well, I've connected with a science. And the science is actually fairly simple. It's that there is a supreme, infinite God, but it's a God that also loves us. And we are children of this God. And we look at the first chapter of Genesis in our Bible as the record of creation, spiritual creation. And at the end of the first chapter of Genesis, it said, and God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. So that's really the foundation of Christian Science, is a sense of God is present, God is omnipotent, it's all power, he's the creator of everything, and our problems in our physical existence develop because we've lost the contact. We've wandered away. So the way to fix that is to get back, connect with God again. That's where the healing takes place. And the impact then on our own lives in that too is that's the challenge to us, is to get as close to God as we can. And the thing I'm working on now in coming along through this is the fact that God is really a presence. We have the spiritual essence of God. Part of the challenge in our religious work is always coming to that kind of Zeus idea. God's just a big guy that throws thunderbolts. And that, as soon as you say he or she, you limit the understanding. If you understand God as a presence, and that's the presence that you insist on belongs to you as a child of a perfect creation, and then you resist the illusion of evil and the illusion of sickness, that they weren't created by God, so they don't exist. And that is an extremely hard religious philosophical point to come to, but it's the essential one that we try to work at in Christian Science, understanding our relationship to God. And a number of other faiths do accept the presence of a great spiritual power, but they don't have the love element in it. They sort of say, this is the way the universe runs. You're in it or you're not. Excuse me. We add that God loves us, we're children of God, and that therefore we're encouraged in our search to get there as well. Excuse me. So I was born and raised in it. My mother was very religious, and she had a Ukrainian Orthodox background. But she found the messages in Christian Science. When she married my father, his mother was a Christian Scientist. So we found that the thread was constant. And one of the questions I noticed in the preparation there was about, in my life with the use of it, we don't have clergy in Christian Science. Everybody's a volunteer. Excuse me. But we have people who has studied more intensely, and they become practitioners, which means they help us with our praying and our focus. And they can actually charge for the service because they spend full time doing it. So but the point is that we elect our church service as readers. We read from the King James Bible, and Mary Baker Eddy, in the 3 years that she was after her thing, trying to articulate, she wrote a book called Science and Health. So our weekly service in church is reading from the Bible and then reading from Science and Health. What Mary Baker Eddy heard or understood was the significance of the Bible passage. So and the readers are elected. We have Sunday school and that, but everybody is a volunteer. One of the questions was about sort of growing through this in my life here as well, and having a point where I felt doubtful or something as well. I found, on the contrary, in my high school times, especially with young teenagers, a lot of questions. A lot of my classmates had been joined into their church at age 12, something like that. And when we got to study in grade 11 the history of Middle Ages and that, they began to find out where their religions had come from or developed, emerged, and that they had declared things when they were 12 years old to join their church, that at 16 they weren't quite sure anymore. And so a lot of our discussions were in that questioning age there as well. And I always was able to understand from my point of view what was going on and where I was and why I was and what I was believing. So the path I had was fairly steady, and it made sense. And I took it with me right through. The doubts that I have right now are the fact that the language that Mary Baker Eddy used is 120 years old. But she was apparently writing and inspired. And the organization that's grown up around that won't touch it. So the language of 120 years ago is not very accessible. So we really don't have, much appeal for young people right now. People aren't prepared to do the work that it takes to, like, she's writing it in English, but it's formal English, and some of the sentences are more like if you read our St. Paul in Corinthians and that. St. Paul was a writer, a lawyer rather too, and he spoke in lawyerese. And a lot of the sentence structures and things are difficult as well. So we are really in serious decline now. We don't have the generation support that we need to keep our organization going. And that's too bad, because the spiritual center of Christian Science is infinite. The the understanding that the actual existence, it's almost what the Greeks were saying with Plato and the metaphysical people at that time, that there is a physical existence, but the true life experience is above that. That there are ideas, there's understanding, there's expressions of love and beauty that are above our existence as well. And I found not only that in reading history of the old church, where the healings were done as part of the practice, expression of Christianity, but that other religions have metaphysical components to them as well. I was at a conference one time hearing a lecture on Sufism within the Islamic tradition, and I told the gentleman after we went to speak with him, I said, "Have you ever heard of Christian Science?" He said, "No." I said, "You would be amazed." Because the metaphysical sense was very present in what he was saying as well. So anyway, that's, and again, mainstream Christianity is a problem for us, as we were talking earlier with because we haven't gone through the structural things. The Emperor Constantine in the 4th century A.D., his wife had a healing in the Christian tradition, So she became a Christian. Constantine was not a Christian, but he was a warrior, and but he was also the emperor. So whatever the emperor was, all the administration of the Roman Empire was also. And I guess Mrs. Constantine was pretty influential because husband became a Christian in name, and the Roman Empire became Christian as well. And that was a mixed blessing because it spread. Every Roman outpost was Christian then, but not necessarily an understanding Christian.
Yeah.
Not knowing what exactly that meant to be a Christian. But they were the Christian representative, and they took it out wide. And some of those seeds fell on the wrong ground, and those things, misunderstandings, mistranslations, everything was happening, but still labeled Christian as well. At the same time, the essential spirit was also somewhere in the mix too, and it did keep that alive. And then you had the Reformation, where the different interpretations of what Christianity was came along as well. So when Mary Baker Eddy had her revelation, she went right around all of this. She tapped into the healings that we read about in the scriptures as well. And the in the church history, the Council of Nicaea was where they decided on the Trinity, whether that was doctrine or not. The problem is that in those days, if you lost the debate, you were a heretic, and heretics could be killed.
Right.
So all of a sudden, you don't want to lose that debate, but they did, because Constantine, he knew he was going to conquer the world at that time, and he didn't like gray areas, black and white. So they got the Trinity passed. The Unitarian Church was the heretics that said, no, the Trinity is not right. There's one God, and Jesus is the Son of that one God. And they managed somehow to survive. And Mary Baker Eddy wasn't a Unitarian, but the same idea occurred. There is one God, and Jesus is the Son of that God. Jesus is extremely spiritual, special person, but he's not God, and Trinity says that he is. So, I'm simplifying a lot of things here, but essentially that makes us not a mainstream church. But my point is, I've experienced the different expressions of Christianity across a wide spectrum, and I still feel that what I'm studying and learning now and practicing is really where I belong. Now, it doesn't mean you belong there or anybody else. It just means for me, it's answering my questions, and it's giving me a sense of understanding of what's going on and some sense of protection. I feel I'm blessed in my life because I can look back now. I'm at an age where you do look back. You don't look forward so much anymore, but you look back, and I can see many points in my life where there was a decision or something, and I was guided. There was the right person or the right information for me at those times. I feel that even in my career, I ended up working with young people as a high school teacher, and teaching's a tough job, but I didn't want to be anywhere else. It was, I felt I was in the right place, and a lot of that depends upon, or as a result of having the right people along the way. And it's happened so many times that I don't think it was random. I have a real sense that my love for my sense of God is connecting me and protecting me and letting it move forward as well. And so, I'm really trying very hard to get past this idea, as mentioned earlier, about a Zeus God. I think of God as a presence, and no gender issue. You don't have a gender issue with gravity. Gravity is an ever-present
Yeah.
force,
Yeah.
and I think, well, that's an expression of God. It's just there, and it's there, over there at the same time. There's no problem. As soon as you start thinking of God as a person, you've got limits. You can't see behind his. There's just so that the spiritual presence of a power, and I can see that when I look out at the universe. There's a presence. Sure, there's explosions and things in that as well, but ultimately the universe is harmonious, and it's revolving and it's growing. The thing I add to that presence is love. And this is where the idea of neighbors and supporting and just being loved, protected, it just provides all those things for me. And this Interfaith Grand River experience, again, it's another blessing. Sandy will tell you about the early days, and I think that it was something. She and Bryce were going around inviting people to be in this new organization, and they were led to people that were just right to be in that kind of an organization. Just being part of something that's so vital is just a rare thing and very precious. And again, I'm sitting there as a Christian Scientist being totally comfortable with 20, 30 different religions there as well. And I feel I can offer suggestions, and I can certainly learn a lot. I learned a lot at today's meeting as well. So that's pretty much. Really. I'm still vibrating from the sense of what happened this morning, and it was just because one person shared very carefully, very thoughtfully, a wonderful path of her own, and a path that intersected some of my stuff and departed from some of my stuff. But boy, I'll the impact will be carried for quite a while here as well. Maybe I've gotten off the track here.
No, it's
as well.
okay. You've actually already answered most of my questions.
Oh.
But if there's anything else that you sort of wanted to cover, if you wanted to talk about community a bit more, or what sort of resonates for you personally.
Well, community, right at street level, quite literally. Our church on Water Street was built in 1899. It opened in 1900. We're getting it designated as an historical site, and it's right at the final stage. Like, it's gone through all the other things, and just now for the city council to officially designate it. And the recommendation is sitting on their desk now to react to. So the building itself, and the building itself is really quite an impressive architectural structure. And the people that built that were very prominent in the community at that time. Like, it has all very authentic reasons for being there and being protected. But our congregation is disappearing. And the frustration for me is that we have something to offer. And they're just about to build a 51-story apartment, or whatever you call those high-rise mountains, just over on King Street, which is 2 blocks away. So we're going to have several thousand people in the neighborhood very soon. And not to sign them up or anything, but just to have them know that there must be in those thousands of people looking for some spiritual guidance, and to know that we're there and that's what we do. That's all. And but because we're financially strong now, but we don't really, the future is not going to maintain that. And So it's a very much on the ground concern of mine to somehow partnerships or whatever it is to keep the building protected. The religion itself can survive without the buildings. It's so metaphysical that as long as you have your sources. We do have world headquarters in Boston, and they do have websites and things that do provide that sort of thing. But again, you have to have people understand that they're there. You have to connect people to it to have them benefit from it. So that's something that it takes up my time now that I'm looking for ways to advertise is really the wrong word, but to connect.
Mm-hmm.
And but in the meantime, I say I'm blessed in every other thing that I'm doing here, and I deeply appreciate that. Even being part of this is another blessing that I appreciate. So, is there?
Yeah, if there's anything else you want to talk about, if there's a last sort of message you want to share with the people at home.
Well, I hope that people at home can have the same opportunity to connect with a religion or a philosophy that meets their needs. It's like we were talking about paths today. There are many paths, and I hope that everyone can find the one that fits where they are and what they're looking for and how to get there. So.
Beautifully put. Thank you so much for being on the program, Tom.
My pleasure, completely.
And thank you for joining us on Believe It or Not. We'll see you next time. Nicely done.
I was hoping at the end here to send out people. There is a path for you.
Mm-hmm.
Find it if you can.
Yeah, I like that.